Hey, welcome back to another Black City Coffee vlog. I'm very happy to be back on the vlog. We had a very nice vacation. I was out foraging for mushrooms in the Pacific Northwest, and definitely found a new passion and hobby over there. Drank a lot of coffee, and I also picked up this. So this is my new coffee travel kit. My sister put me onto this. So this is pretty dope though. Check this out. So you know that packed kettle? It has a really nice spout for pour over when you're traveling. The only downside is you've got to have it hooked up to a three-pronged, 120 volt thing. But if you're going to a hotel or you're just traveling or you like to have your coffee a particular way, like I still recommend it. But the cool thing is that it fits in the lid of this case, which is amazing. So there's this little holder here. Just pop it open and it holds it. This thing is hefty too. So this is what actually makes this thing pretty heavy in weight in terms of a travel kit. So it's not exactly lightweight, but it's how I prefer to travel. I've been traveling like this for quite some time now with my coffee. I'll have some coffee in here. This is pretty old, not old, but June. But I also picked up this, which you guys saw on the Instagram stories, and I haven't tried it. And I've already had my first cup of coffee, being back from vacation, right away back into work. But I wanna now taste this. So we're gonna cup it and really give it a fair shake. A lot of you in the DMs are like, oh, it's from Starbucks, which I understand completely. But if you've never been to the Starbucks Reserve in Seattle, they have a really cool roastery there. They have this huge, massive drum roaster that you can watch it roasting, you know, basically by the minute. And all the green that's kind of like circulating. It's very aesthetic. And they have like a tasting bar and everything. Now, I didn't personally go. My husband actually went there, hung out, tasted everything. But I first went there like, I don't know, 5-6 years ago, something like that. But I was really impressed by it. And that was before I started roasting. So now that I have this new sort of like evolved perspective about coffee, less prejudice for sure about coffee in general, even Starbucks, even Dunkin' Donuts, diner coffee. I mean, still I'm prejudiced toward it, like I prefer not to drink that, but I have a lot more open-minded perspective about coffee, and so I still highly, highly respect a company like Starbucks, and I'm excited to taste this particular coffee, which is a whiskey barrel aged Guatemala tall bean. There's no roast date on it. They said it was roasted like 2 days ago or something when my husband picked it up. So this is a good 7 days, I'd say, it's a solid rest. It's lot number 8, and it's not packaged any crazy way. There's no valve on this bag. So some air has been able to get in here. So, you know, we have to consider that when we cup it today. They used this Guatemalan single origin coffee and then aged it in a Knob Creek bourbon whiskey barrel. So Knob Creek, that's a whiskey, a bourbon actually specifically, because whiskeys, was this all in my face the whole time? That are made in America are you know, it depends on like what it's made out of, but it's a bourbon. So we have whiskey, the whole like genre of whiskey, and then you can have bourbon, which is made in America, and most of the time made from like corn and stuff like that. So if you're into whiskey, you're a whiskey nerd, you'll like that. At least we know what kind of whiskey barrel this is being aged in. The first time I tried this, a whiskey like this, a coffee like this in a whiskey aged barrel, was from Trader Joe's. You don't know the roast date, you don't know what kind of whiskey that the coffee was aged in, you don't even know what kind of coffee it was. So I remember at that time, before roasting, I still actually enjoyed it. It was weird at first. It was a very weird flavor because I was still kind of getting used to, I think, the different flavor notes that coffee has to offer. This was maybe, I don't know, 6-7 years ago, maybe more. And I was like, it's all right, you know, it's okay. And then towards the end of that batch that I had with this Trader Joe's whiskey aged coffee, I liked it a lot, where I was like, it's interesting. So yeah, that was my only experience and exposure to a coffee that's been whiskey aged. To finish off what I have in my travel kit, I have the Fellow, the small one. This is just like their Carter mug. I have a small scale. This is the one I use at the espresso machine. Then I have my Normcore, which I love. I got filters. Shout out to Stone Forest Coffee. I keep some playing cards in here. One, because they're amazing. We had a chance to play with these on the vacation. Played a little capture, a game that we made up in my childhood. Keep that in there. That's cool. So that's the travel coffee kit. But we're here to cup this. So let's put all these back. Oh, and this, from the packed kit, the pour over that shrinks down to that size, and then it extends like that when you want to make some pour over. I have to be a little forceful with it. It is rather new. Yeah. I don't know what I do. Okay, there you go. Just gotta give it a little. Not sealed at all. They think you're gonna drink it right away, maybe, or we'll just see. We don't know. We need some to burn. So for the cupping, I'm always doing 12 grams. Oh wow, looks quite dark. It looks dark. Interesting. Smells dark. Are you surprised? Burn some. All right, let's give it a little snippy sniff, as Gary Vaynerchuk would say back in the day. Whoa. Ooh, okay. All right, I guess I shouldn't be surprised. It smells like Starbucks coffee. A smidge burnt, very roasty, dark. There's a petroleum element to it, very roasty. A bit of like salty soy sauce element to it. Almost fishy, almost. All right, let's see. This was served to Kevin at the Starbucks Reserve. He loved it, and how they served it was in iced coffee, looking like a whiskey. So a little whiskey glass, one rock, and it was an iced coffee. Which, you know what? I think that would make sense in terms of this being so dark, to sort of like muddle it. And as the ice or the rock melts, sort of dilute this flavor. So I didn't see how it was brewed over there, how the mixologist did all that, but we're just gonna evaluate as a coffee in the cup, you know? We're really trying not to let this, you know, bias our opinion, what we taste in the cup. And that's really important, not to let yourself dissuaded or persuaded one way or another. It's really hard to do that. So ideally you would do this blind, but there's a couple of things that you can already kind of glean from how dark it is, the smell, all that stuff. So let's not read this yet, right? Like, let's not read the tasting notes. I encourage you not to read the tasting notes before you go and taste it, because you're going to be looking for all those tasting notes you just read. So taste it first, then go and read the tasting notes and see if you did pick them up. Really try to verbalize what you're tasting. That's the best way that you could approach becoming a better cupper. I mean, at this stage of like being at home and whatnot. You could take a class, you could do all that kinds of stuff. You could really just like taste what vanilla tastes like, strawberries taste like, real vanilla, real strawberries, real blueberries, whatever. And then go and see if that matches what you're tasting in the cup. And that's all tasting really is. Okay, so now we're going to break the crust, give this guy a sniffy. Pretty one note in terms of just a roasty nut. I'm not getting any like you know, whiskey notes or anything like that. I was explaining to my husband and how they would possibly make this sort of coffee, and that maybe this is a byproduct of, like, say when whiskey is being aged in a barrel, right? And Knob Creek, for example, is like, this barrel is at its end of life. It's no longer giving off the flavor notes that we have in our standards. So we're gonna sell it to whomever as a byproduct, as a means of, like, you know, flavoring for other things. And maybe it doesn't work for our whiskey, for our Knob Creek whiskey right now in our standards, but maybe it'll work for somebody else, like Starbucks or Trader Joe's or whatever it is, right? So now when Trader Joe's or Starbucks gets a hold of these barrels, they can legitimately call it a Knob Creek barrel, you know, and that's great for marketing because we have credibility established there. And then they could see what it produces. And then if it does produce something worthwhile, they can market that. Now, worthwhile doesn't always mean good. Worthwhile means, well, people buy it, like in a business sense, right? I mean, this is all my assumption as an entrepreneur if I'm going to approach this as, say, like a business, right? Not good or bad, but we're just talking about how things like this can possibly come into the market and come into consumers and how we get in contact with it, right? All right, so we're at 2 minutes. Again, we're going to wait till about 5-6 minutes, let it cool down so we can actually taste it. Now, if we look at the coffee right now, it looks very dark. But if I look at the rim here, I can even see a little bit more of its kind of like true color. Because here, where it's very opaque, it's layered, it's concentrated, but here by the rim of the white cup, which I think it's really important, not really important, but it's an aspect of cupping, I think, to have a white cup versus a black cup, because then you can tell, right? And if you had a black cup, that would really be like a blind tasting because you couldn't see this rim of the coffee here, right? And you could kind of see like how light it could be. Because like if you do a light roast and you cup it, you'll see how even lighter it is on the rim, right? Because it's kind of like bouncing off that clean white surface versus like a black surface, which would absorb any of that color and you wouldn't be able to tell anything. So if I really wanted to do a really blind tasting and just not be affected as a cupper by the color, because color gives away a lot, I would want to do these in black cups. Because I was thinking about that. I saw some other coffee companies on Instagram and they were using black cups, and I thought, hey, why are they using black cups? And I just thought about it a little bit. I was like, well, you can't tell, you can't see anything if it's in a black cup. So I think that would be a benefit in terms of like another challenge of like how you could be more of a blind cupper, a blind taster in that situation, and really judge the coffee for what it tastes like. Because color can give away and be like, oh, it's dark, oh, it's light. Now I'm expecting dark or light or whatever, medium flavor notes and stuff like that. So it allows you to be less biased. Yeah, so since this was a darker coffee, and we don't know what kind of process it was, it just says whiskey barrel aged Guatemala, so it's single origin, Kentucky straight bourbon. Okay, again, we're not going to read the tasting notes. We just know it's from Guatemala. We don't know how long it sat in this barrel. So yeah, there's still a lot of information kind of missing, but it's okay because we have not tasted it yet. And so what I'll do is like maybe after I taste this and give my assessment of it, I'll go look it up and see what's up. We're at 5 minutes. Okay. All right. Hot tasting notes, Very strong, very bold. Not a hint of any whiskey-like flavors, like say vanilla, or what are the common whiskey flavors? Vanilla, honey, walnut, orange peel, maybe apple, right? Not getting that here. Very dark, very bold, like what you would expect from Starbucks. Okay, that's my first from the get. There's a tobacco leaf element that's holding everything up. And that's because they take it to that, you know, we look at the bean, they take it to that level of roastiness, right? Why? Because most people who are drinking Starbucks coffee are adding cream and sugar to it, right? That's fine. I don't want to yuck your yum. That's fine. But look at this. It's not oils present on the bean. Let's get more. More. All you naysayers, that was funny. Pretty dark, slightly tipped. I could see singed a little bit, but no oils present. Shiny, not extremely puffed. So really, it wasn't taken to a dark level roast. It's more like a medium, I'd say, because the face of the coffee, some of them are still quite flat, right? You know, if you talk about the face of the coffee bean or seed, if you see it super puffy, puffed up, round, you know, that's more of like a dark roast territory. But this could have been just roasted aggressively or roasted poorly. And then, okay, what can we do with it? Let's throw it in that whiskey barrel and call it whiskey barrel aged. It's marketable again. It's a sellable product again, right? Versus this being a Guatemalan, maybe it wasn't roasted to the best. Maybe it's old. It's old coffee. It's old green, is what I mean. What do we do with this old green? There's ways we can be creative, still market it as a new product, slap a new face on it, package it pretty nicely, serve it up so people can try it, serve it in a way that wows them. They're sold by the wow, by the coffee, right? That's how you could move older product, slap a new face on it. There's nothing wrong with this. This is business. You know, this is how a company maximizes profit, but also doesn't waste. You know, I'm for that, where it's like, how do we utilize this older green? I don't want to waste it. It's still basically good. Somebody's still gonna drink it. Like, this is not my preference of coffee, obviously, but you could still do stuff with it. Like me, even though I don't like it here, like in the cup, I could still do stuff with it. I could still make it to espresso. I could still put cream and sugar in it for a sweet cup, right? I could still do like different experiments with it. I could keep it as a control. It'd be like, this is how Starbucks does their, I'd say, medium dark roast, not oily. Okay, there's obviously a market for that. Can I replicate that as a roaster? You know, can I match that quality? I mean, if people are buying this, there's nothing wrong with that. The market says so. The market says this is viable, right? Even though I don't personally like it, which is tough, because when you become a business owner, it's hard not to blur that line between like, what do I love? You know, what do I deem worth it as an artist, just as a person, versus what do I sell and make money off and make a living with? There's a weird little line there. As long as you don't let it bother you too much, and you don't get, you know, you get off your high horse, basically, it's not a big deal. But I get it, totally. I totally get it, why people remain on the horse. Obviously, I wouldn't buy this again. It's still tasting very bold. It's a typical bold Starbucks blend or coffee that you would buy. To me, nothing stands out. Nothing to me says whiskey barrel aged. But the thing is like, people will see this and in their mind believe now. In their mind already, because of the packaging, because of everything like this, and they're not gonna do this, right? They're not gonna do this. They're maybe gonna brew it in a way that was served to them at the reserve and do it that way. And try to recapture what they experienced there. And nothing wrong with that either, okay? But for me, yeah, not gonna do it for me. That's a no for me. But it's not waste. It will not be wasted. I'll do something with it to make it drinkable. I won't waste it. I still respect this company. I still respect coffee. I still love coffee, even though I don't particularly like it. You can still love it. It's like an unconditional love with the coffee. And the reason why I'm hitting that home really hard is just because, like, I was totally there, just being so sort of like turn up my nose to coffees like this, but all coffee comes from those places, right? And no matter how they've been roasted or how people drink it or how people serve it, it all comes from there. So I don't need to be bothered about the politics of coffee. I just need to know that coffee comes from a special place and it gets to us in a special way. And it's an honor every single time I get to drink coffee. So when I approach coffee that way, and even though I don't like it, in that perspective, I can still find joy in this, and I get to share it with you guys, and I still get to appreciate coffee in all of its forms. Cool? Okay. Well, that was the Starbucks Reserve Knob Creek Bourbon Whiskey Barrel Aged Guatemala medium dark roast, cupped and done. See you in the next one. Bye.